Sophie Cunningham is putting to bed rumors that she planned on leaving Indiana.
Sophie Cunningham has finally spoken, and her new statement has the entire WNBA community buzzing. For weeks, fans have argued about whether she planned to walk away from the Indiana Fever, especially after her podcast comments hinting at a fresh start and a bigger contract somewhere else.
Biggest storylines that was going around in the WNBA last week was Sophie Cunningham actually leaving the Indiana Fever. Now, in her podcast, which we're going to play the clip here in a minute, she spoke about next team she go to, she want to buy a house or something.
But everything shifted the moment she appeared beside Caitlin Clark at the golf event and opened up about where she truly sees her future. What she revealed surprised both supporters and critics, and it raised even bigger questions about team chemistry, loyalty, and what the Fever might look like next season.
Now, many people, even myself, pretty much was thinking that she was possibly finna leave. Now, this could possibly be a play for her to get more money, but whatever the situation is, it made headlines. We all had to talk about it, and we all had to report on it.
The entire explosion around Sophie Cunningham's future began with one unexpected moment on her podcast, a moment that spiraled far beyond anything she probably intended. When she casually mentioned wanting a bigger contract and a new place to call home with her next team, fans did not treat it like a simple comment. The tone of her voice, the timing of the remark, and especially the look of surprise on her co-host's face created a spark that instantly caught fire online.
The next team I play for, I want a bigger contract, so then I can buy a house and be homey and cozy.
Fuck yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. That could be the Liberty. It could be New York City. It could also be.
Now, her co-host on the show looked like, wow, because he was kind of shocked that she said that.
Within minutes, that short clip made its way across social media, and people began treating it like a sign that Sophie was preparing to walk away from the Indiana Fever altogether. Some fans claimed she was hinting at a move to a bigger market, like New York. Others believed she was just positioning herself for leverage, especially with the ongoing CBA discussions. And a portion of the fan base began to wonder whether her partnership with Caitlin Clark was already reaching its end before it even truly began.
30-day extensions for the CBAs. Any thoughts?
So I actually learned a lot because we've been having CBA calls. I know it's actually very intriguing. I love the business side of things, but when you don't know, you don't know. So I thought that if we didn't have a agreement by the 31st, then it was a lockout. That's not true. So you can, if both sides are continuing to negotiate and trying to come up with something, then you're not in a lockout. But once one side kind of stops or just meh, that's when the lockout happens. So that's news to me.
The reason the reaction was so intense had a lot to do with timing. The season had just ended, emotions were high, the CBA situation was uncertain, players were discussing their futures behind the scenes, teams were reevaluating rosters, and in the middle of that environment, Sophie's vague but loaded statement felt like a major clue. The fact that she did not immediately clarify her intentions allowed the storyline to grow louder.
This is an article that came out about an hour ago detailing everything she had to say. It says Sophie Cunningham addresses future with Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Goes on to say Indiana Fever teammates Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark were back together, which we seen yesterday at the Anika tournament. Now, the two WNBA stars are following season-ending injuries. Both of them had season-ending injuries. Caitlin Clark averaged 16 points per game in 13 games, while Sophie Cunningham put 8 points in 30 regular season games. Now, Caitlin Clark told Golf that she is feeling 100% better.
Social media began dissecting every sentence she said. Analysts started listing possible destinations. Fans argued about whether Indiana could afford to lose her energy, toughness, and experience. The entire situation became a running conversation across multiple platforms.
But Caitlin Clark did say that she's 100% healthy. She's ready to go. After her groin injury, preparing for the 2026 season, I believe Caitlin Clark been ready to go since about late August, early September. Don't take that as fact. That's just my opinion. But I truly believe that is the case. It stated it is a future that Cunningham would like to be a part of, right? Now, Sophie Cunningham said this. Sophie stated She's a phenomenal generation player, and I think everyone sees that, Cunningham stated on Wednesday.
But what truly kept the topic alive was the uncertainty. Was Sophie revealing genuine frustration? Was she teasing a move for attention? Was she joking? Or was she sending a message to the Fever front office about her value ahead of negotiations? People wanted answers, and Sophie's silence only made the speculation stronger. And just when the rumor mill seemed ready to explode, Sophie made her next public appearance and delivered a sudden shift in tone that caught everyone off guard.
So this is the article here. It stated Cunningham 29 highlight Caitlin Clark's ability to elevate the rest of the team, expressing her desire to run it back. So she stated, we missed her out there on the court this year, but depending on the CBAs and what's going on, hopefully we're all together again. Now, this is what Sophie Cunningham stated yesterday at the golf event. Now, Sophie Cunningham posted this on her Instagram.
Everything shifted the moment Sophie Cunningham appeared alongside Caitlin Clark at the golf event. What was supposed to be a simple public appearance turned into the most important clue about her future. Fans noticed immediately that Sophie looked relaxed, comfortable, and genuinely happy to be there. She was laughing with Caitlin, cheering her on, and moving around the course like someone who had no intention of abandoning the partnership they started to build in Indiana. The body language alone was enough to make fans pause and rethink the rumors. But then Sophie spoke publicly for the first time since the podcast clip went viral. Her tone was different. Her message was clearer. She praised Caitlin openly, calling her a phenomenal generational talent and emphasizing how much she missed playing with her on the court. It was the first real sign that she was not distancing herself from the Fever, but actually leaning in. Fans immediately picked up on the shift. Social media threats began to flip. People went from assuming she wanted out to believing she might be preparing to double down on her commitment. What really sealed the moment was her comment about wanting to run it back with Caitlin and the rest of the team if the CBA situation allowed it. Those were the words fans had been waiting to hear. Instead of speaking about leaving, she spoke about reuniting. Instead of hinting at other locations, she talked about elevating Caitlin and helping her lead the team the way she knows she can. It felt like she was rejoining the story instead of stepping away from it. The unexpected twist created a new wave of discussion. Was Sophie addressing the rumors because she truly wanted to shut them down, or was she simply calming the storm until final contract talks take place? Her tone sounded sincere, but people could not ignore the fact that players often say the right things publicly while still negotiating behind the scenes. Still, this moment at the golf event was the first time Sophie made it clear that she sees a future beside Caitlin Clark, and that shift in energy set the stage for an even more revealing moment that followed. As the golf event clips continued to circulate, another layer of the story emerged through a detailed article that broke down Sophie Cunningham's full comments about her future. This was where fans finally got context, not just fragments pulled from a podcast or short social media reactions. In this interview, Sophie spoke more openly about what she sees in Caitlin Clark and why she believes their partnership still has unfinished business. She emphasized how much Caitlin elevates everyone around her, calling her a generational player who changes the entire dynamic of a team. This was not the language of someone preparing to leave. It was the language of someone who believes she has a role in something much bigger. The article also highlighted how both Sophie and Caitlin are recovering from season-ending injuries, and how that shared experience built a quiet bond between them. Sophie talked about missing Caitlin on the court, missing the pace, the spacing, and the excitement that comes with playing next to someone who forces defenses to adjust every second. She framed it almost like a partnership that was interrupted, not completed. Fans who read the full piece immediately felt the difference compared to the tone of the viral podcast clip. Here, Sophie sounded focused, intentional, and grateful for the opportunity to play alongside Caitlin rather than searching for an escape route. Another important detail was her acknowledgement of the CBA situation. Instead of speaking like someone waiting to leave, she discussed it like someone invested in how the future of the league will shape her own decisions. She talked about learning more about the business side of the WNBA, attending calls and understanding what each negotiation means for players like her. That level of curiosity and engagement did not sound like someone ready to jump ship. It sounded like someone preparing to navigate the next chapter with clarity. But the most striking moment came when Sophie said she hoped we're all together again next season. That single line flipped the narrative. It suggested she was thinking about continuity, not departure. And that comment opened the door to a deeper look at what truly motivates her decisions moving forward.
The turning point in the conversation came when fans revisited Sophie Cunningham's first interview as a member of the Indiana Fever. That moment, recorded months before the rumors, revealed a version of Sophie that many people had forgotten. She spoke with excitement, energy, and genuine belief that Indiana was the perfect place for her playing style and personality. She talked about leaving Phoenix after 6 years, searching for a fresh start, and finally finding a system built for shooters, movers, and players who thrive in fast-paced, team-oriented basketball. Every word in that interview sounded like someone stepping into a new chapter with confidence, not hesitation. Sophie described how the Fever's offensive style matched exactly how she wanted to play. She emphasized how much she valued sharing the court with people who could create space, push the tempo, and feed off each other's strengths. That was the moment many fans realized the podcast clip may have been interpreted without context. In her first interview, Sophie made it clear she wanted Indiana because it offered a culture she could grow in. She praised the locker room environment, the coaching style, and the energy surrounding Caitlin Clark's arrival. She did not sound like someone who planned to be a temporary piece. She sounded invested. Her Midwestern roots also played a major role in her excitement. She talked about being closer to her family, reconnecting with the community she grew up in, and being surrounded by people who understood her work ethic. Her family had already begun asking about season tickets, which showed how serious she was about building a life in Indiana. These were details fans had forgotten in the heat of rumor-driven speculation. Then came the most telling part. Sophie talked about learning from legends like Diana Taurasi and wanting to pass down that same mentorship to Caitlin Clark. She embraced the role of a veteran who could guide younger players while still competing fiercely. That kind of commitment is not something a player develops overnight or discards easily. Seeing this interview again reminded fans that Sophie arrived in Indiana with purpose, enthusiasm, and long-term belief. And that perspective changed how people viewed her recent comments.
Once fans revisited Sophie's original mindset, her recent actions started to make much more sense. What many people overlooked was how deeply Sophie values connection, chemistry, and loyalty. These traits showed up again when she posted her season recap on Instagram, a message filled with gratitude, personal milestones, and an emotional reflection on her journey. She mentioned new teammates, new relationships, and a renewed sense of purpose. Buried in that post was a comment from Caitlin Clark saying it was time to run it back. A statement that carried far more weight than people first realized. It revealed that Caitlin herself wanted Sophie to return, and Sophie's response suggested she felt the same way. That interaction changed everything. Fans began reading the entire situation through a different lens. Instead of seeing Sophie as someone looking for a way out, people started seeing her as a player navigating injuries, uncertainty, and the business side of the league while still holding on to her connection with her team. Her bond with Caitlin was no longer a storyline created by fans. It became something both players openly acknowledged. Sophie's willingness to post about her season, describe her happiness, and highlight the relationship she built signaled a player who appreciated her environment rather than someone preparing to leave it behind. The Instagram post also hinted at how much this season meant to her personally. She mentioned a new knee, a new tooth, and the emotional ups and downs that shaped her 7th year in the league. It was a reminder of how much she fought through physically and mentally. Players who endure seasons like that often want stability, not sudden change. They want to return to familiar faces, supportive teammates, and environments where they feel valued. The fact that Caitlin publicly engaged with her added a second layer of affirmation. It showed mutual respect and genuine desire to play together again. At this point, the rumors about Sophie leaving began to lose momentum. Fans who once believed she was on her way out started asking whether the entire storyline had been blown out of proportion. But the biggest shift was still ahead, because Sophie's final comments at the golf event finally addressed the uncertainty head-on in a way no one expected.
Sophie Cunningham's final comments at the golf event became the moment that truly reshaped the entire narrative. After days of speculation, fan arguments, media breakdowns, and wild theories about where she might go next, Sophie finally addressed her future with a clarity that caught everyone by surprise. Instead of dancing around the topic or leaving room for interpretation, she spoke directly about Caitlin Clark. the Fever, and what she hoped would happen moving forward. She praised Caitlin again, calling her a player who elevates everyone around her, but this time she added something even more important. She said she wanted to run it back with the same group, depending on how the CBA situation unfolds. That one sentence became the headline everywhere. The way she delivered the comment mattered even more than the words themselves. She sounded sincere, calm, and grounded. There was no hesitation in her voice, no sense of distance or uncertainty. Fans who've been watching closely noticed the shift right away. It felt like Sophie was no longer reacting to the rumors, but taking control of the story. She made it clear that she values the chemistry they built, even if injuries stopped them from fully showing it on the court. She emphasized that the future of the Fever depends on staying together, not splintering apart. And for the first time, her message aligned perfectly with the energy Caitlin Clark had been giving off all week. But what people found most interesting was Sophie's reference to the CBA. Instead of avoiding the complicated topic, she openly acknowledged that contract talks and league negotiations would play a major role in everyone's decisions. It showed she understood the bigger picture. It also hinted that her earlier comments about wanting a bigger contract were not about running away, but about navigating a changing league. Her honesty reframed everything. Fans began seeing her podcast remark as part of a larger discussion rather than a warning sign. By the time she finished speaking, the mood had completely shifted. What began as a storyline about Sophie possibly leaving had transformed into a story about a player who wants to stay, wants to compete, and wants another chance to build something with Caitlin Clark and the Fever. And that clarity set the stage for an even deeper look at what her future might truly hold.
As the dust began to settle, fans and analysts started looking beyond the immediate comments and focusing on what Sophie Cunningham's future with the Indiana Fever actually means for the franchise. Her role is bigger than just a shooter or a spark plug. She has become a personality that gives the team edge, identity, and emotional fire. When people talk about the Fever's culture shift since Caitlin Clark arrived, Sophie is often at the center of that discussion. Her toughness, her willingness to speak up, and her habit of defending teammates give Indiana something it desperately needed during its rebuild. Losing someone like that would not just affect the rotation, it would affect the soul of the team. Sophie understands that role. She has always embraced being the player who brings energy, confidence, and grit. She has been vocal about supporting younger teammates and standing up for them when the pressure gets intense. Caitlin Clark, more than anyone, needs veterans who can carry part of that emotional weight. Sophie knows how to protect her star teammates because she learned from one of the best to ever do it. Diana Taurasi taught her how to be fearless, how to lead, and how to challenge teammates in a way that helps them grow. Those lessons now matter more than ever for a young Fever team learning how to win in a rapidly evolving league. When fans realized this, the conversation shifted from "will she leave" to "Indiana cannot afford to lose her." Her presence on the court stretches defenses. Her physicality sets the tone. Her personality keeps the locker room competitive yet connected. And her relationship with Caitlin is not manufactured. It is real. It is visible. It is the type of bond that wins games late in the season when pressure starts to outweigh talent. That is why her comments about wanting to return carried so much weight. They were not just about her, they were about the bigger picture. The Fever are building something with long-term potential. They have young talent, renewed fan interest, and a chance to shape the future of the league. Sophie sees that. She wants to be part of that. But even with all these signs pointing toward her staying, one final question remains unanswered. And that question is the one fans are still waiting to see unfold.
Even with Sophie Cunningham's public statements, the praise for Caitlin Clark, and the clear desire to run it back with the Fever, one crucial factor still looms over everything: the CBA. This is the final piece of the puzzle, the part that no player can control entirely, and the reason why Sophie's future cannot be fully locked in yet. The league is in the middle of sensitive negotiations, and every player, especially veterans, is weighing their options carefully. Sophie has been honest about learning more about the business side of basketball, attending calls and understanding the stakes. That awareness changes how she approaches her next move. She knows her value, she knows the market is shifting, and she knows that decisions made at the league level could determine whether staying in Indiana makes the most sense for her long term. Fans sometimes underestimate how much the CBA affects real careers. A bigger contract is not just about money. It can mean stability, guaranteed roles, injury protection, and long-term security. Sophie is coming off a season where she fought through physical setbacks and emotional challenges. She is entering a stage of her career where smart decisions matter more than ever. And while her heart may be fully invested in returning to Indiana, her mind also has to consider what the next contract looks like. This does not mean she is leaving. It means she is thinking like a professional who has earned the right to prioritize her future. At the same time, Indiana represents something rare in the WNBA. It is a franchise with momentum, a superstar who draws national attention, a fan base that sells out arenas, and a core that genuinely likes playing together. Sophie has never hidden how much she values culture. She wants teammates who compete hard, communicate openly, and believe in the same goals. She has found that in Indiana, and despite the noise, the uncertainty, and the rumors, nothing she has said recently suggests she wants to walk away from that environment. So now everything hinges on timing. Once the CBA discussions become clearer, Sophie's path will come into focus. Until then, fans will keep watching every move, every comment, and every interaction, hoping the story ends with her staying right where she belongs.
Sophie Cunningham's journey from a misunderstood podcast clip to a confident public declaration has completely reshaped how fans view her future with the Indiana Fever. Her praise for Caitlin, her bond with the team, and her renewed clarity at the golf event all point toward a player who wants to build something lasting in Indiana. The only remaining obstacle is the CBA, which will determine how quickly her return becomes official. But based on everything she has said and shown, the momentum is firmly in favor of her staying, reuniting with Caitlin, and helping the Fever chase something bigger next season.